as a Russian booster rocket. They claimed that the Russian booster rocket went past the Gemini 11 capsule, and that's what they saw and took pictures of. I was able to prove conclusively that the Russian booster was 3,000 miles behind them. They weren't even looking in the right direction to see it if they could have. So whatever went past them remains unknown. And then the Skylab 3 case, which there were 3 astronauts in the Skylab 3 satellite, and all 3 of them saw this red whatever it is, which shouldn't have been there, but was. I have not really studied other astronaut cases.
Interesting.
I got enough ground level cases to worry about.
Now I got to ask you a question. I'm sure people send you pictures over. How many of them do you, before we went on the air, we were talking a little bit about optics, the aperture, where maybe the flash is mounted near the camera, or at a slow shutter speed, or dust even on the, digital SLR cameras could be on the sensor. How many pictures do you see that, that definitely fall under those type of categories?
Well, I don't say that. I don't see that many dust orb type pictures from people. I got them when they were sort of a new and novel thing back in the mid-1990s, about 1995, 96, 97 time frame. Everybody started getting dust orbs, or flash orbs, I call them, because you have to have some sort of a light source, like a flash. The flash in the camera has to light up the air, the volume of air that's in front of the lens and close to the lens. And they started making cameras, small, compact cameras, that had a situation where there was only about an inch between where the flash was and where the input aperture was. And so it was easy to light up tiny particles that could be in front of the aperture of the camera, light them up with a flash, and they would cause little bright blobs on the film. And these little typically circular images weren't really images. They were shadowgraphs of the aperture of the lens, the circular, or if it was a square aperture, then they would come out square, and so on. There was a lot of people who went out and, for example, I remember getting a bunch of pictures from some people who went to a graveyard, and they would run around the graveyard and take pictures just randomly off in various directions, pictures with flash, and very often find little orbs, which they interpreted as being spirits of the people who were underground. But I have a paper on my website which is devoted to the analysis of that phenomenon, and it pretty well explains what I call flash orbs that require a source of light. If you can see these orbs with the naked eye and no light source around, then you got what I would call a real, true orb. But if you have to have a light source illuminating a volume of air in front of the camera, whether it's a flash or a flashlight or something like that, if you have to have a light source illuminating the volume of air in front of the camera lens, then it's a flash, what I would call a flash orb. And it's most likely a piece of dust that's close to the lens.
Now, can you give your website again where these people could, if they're interested, to be able to learn the difference, where they can read your report?
Yeah, BRUMAC dot mysite MYSITE.com.
Okay,
you can also contact me through the website by going to the website and use the instructions there, or you can contact me by email at brumac at BRUMAC at CompuServe, CompuServe.com.
Well, I haven't even.
CompuServe was really a dinosaur.
Oh, yeah.
Probably one of the longest-lasting email addresses in the whole of the history of the Internet.
Oh, yeah. I remember back years and years ago, you could go into like Office Depot and some of these places, and you sign up for your Internet and you got a free computer back. And that was very popular back in the early 90s. You got a CompuServe, and I just don't see it very much anymore. And it's strange. A big company like that kind of just like drifting off,
Well, AOL bottom out.
Yeah.
CompuServe still exists. You can go to www.compuserve.com, but it's not. It was one of the major competitors for people to sign up until AOL basically started giving itself away, and everybody went to AOL.
Oh yeah.
You had to pay CompuServe.
Oh yeah. Now, one thing I will say, and I think I maybe mentioned before, I used to have a friend who, during Vietnam, he was a colonel. He flew a B-52 over from, I believe, Guam over to Vietnam to drop, whatever they dropped, and then fly back. And he said that towards his last, I guess, missions, before he would be shipped back to the United States, he was looking out his side window, and he spotted a UFO, and he said a lot of the crew members, were intrigued with seeing it. The UFO was following them for a while, and then woof, it was gone. He said biggest mistake he ever made, and that's why when his term was up, he didn't stay in the military, is that he reported it on the radio, and by the time he landed, the guys in the Jeeps, in the suits were all there, and they took the whole crew and separated everybody in their own room, and then convinced him he didn't see a UFO, that UFOs didn't exist, and he had to sign some paper. If he ever said anything about it, he could be charged with some type of crime. But I got to know him when he worked, I don't know if you remember, Republic Airlines back in the 90s.
Right.
They were a huge airline at one time. And he was one of the vice presidents. And I got to know him from, just, I don't even remember how, but we became good friends, and he was telling me that story. And he said that, that if you, as a pilot, report a UFO, you can say your career in the airlines is over with. That's it. You're either going to lose your license or no airline will ever touch you again.
Right.
And,
that goes all the way back to the beginning, late 40s and early 50s. Republic Aircraft was around in the 50s.
Oh, yeah.
And they took an active interest in the sighting stuff and worked right along. They were somewhat associated with the Project Blue Book people.
Yeah, I didn't even know that. But, for the government, to close Blue Book and say, hey, there's no UFOs or there's not enough proof, I mean, it's ludicrous. I know that we can't be the only life in the universe. We can't be. And, I have had Calvin Parker on my show several times. And, what happened to him in Mississippi, being abducted. And one thing I will say, Bruce, when I was talking to him, I said, well, for your abduction, what did you feel like? Did you feel like they were here to help mankind? Or did you feel like there was evil? And he kind of said evil.
Mm-hmm.
That's and that kind of shocked me, because a lot of people I get on, that claim they've been abducted by aliens and stuff like this and been on UFOs. They say that they're here to, serve man and all that stuff. And it's been only a few people that really came back to me and said, hey, no, I really thought they were evil. They're not here to serve mankind at all.
If they talk about serving man, I'd be a little leery, especially after the Twilight show.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. Yeah. Serve man, a nice cookbook, huh?
That's right.
Now, I've been very disappointed here in the last couple months. I heard from some people out there, they were so convinced that this major disclosure was going to come down about UFOs. And, there was so much on Facebook for a while and so much, going, and then it kind of petered out many times I've seen through the years. And really, disclosure, the Navy saying, hey, we're going to take reports and all this stuff of UFOs from pilots. That's not the disclosure that people were thinking it was going to happen. What's your feeling? What's going on?
Oh, I've long felt that it won't happen until more than 50% of the people are witnesses. I refer to the what I call the emperor has no clothes effect, where gradually everybody, or a large portion of the population, becomes witnesses, and then somebody stands up, like a little kid stands up and says, "Hey, they're real," and everybody else says, "Yep, we knew that all along." And as far as the government is concerned, they don't want to imply that something's going on that they're not familiar with or they have no control over. So the easiest way is to make use of what I call the self cover-up. There's very few people that want this to be true. When you start thinking about UFOs as real, actual creatures of some sort with their own goals in life or whatever, their own reason for being and whatever it is they're doing around here. When you start thinking about that in depth, you can begin to worry a little bit, shall we say, as to they introduce a new uncertainty into civilization. Civilization hates uncertainty. You like to be able to predict what's going to happen a year or 2 years or 5 years or 10 years ahead, so that you'll work hard now to be ready for what's going to happen later. But if there's a major uncertainty, like there's somebody that can put you out of business by replacing you with a robot, then this is not so good for your psyche.
No, not really. But yeah, I think because the government has covered it up, going back before even Roswell, let's be honest, that they're in a situation, like if you have a little kid or a compulsive liar lies, right? How can, they come and be truthful, and who would believe them? The problem I see, if the government came out tomorrow and said, yes, we're being visited a lot by UFOs, maybe, and we don't know if they're here to serve man or to serve man in a different way. I don't know how the public would really respond, because the general public, I think, would freak out if the government says, we have no control, we can't protect you. If they're hostile, we have no way to protect you. I think that the whole thing, like this disclosure thing, it was going on. As fast as it was going on, I saw the opposite going on, where they were trying to discredit these people who were, coming out with anything that, to do with disclosure. Then you have the other group of people, trying to say, well, muck it up. How's that?
Yeah. Well, there's a big churning going on underground, so to speak, with respect to these sightings by the Navy pilots. We're still not absolutely confident of the videos that go along with the sightings, but there does seem to be the possibility of removing the bag from your head if you want to talk about UFOs at the present time, because of this publicity that's been spearheaded by the New York Times, I guess, and the True the Stars Academy people. They've been managed to get in moderately good press. Some of it's really good press, but at least they're not being panned completely, not being told that they're idiots for seeing things that they picked up on their instrumentation. Now, we know from history, if you study the history of sightings, a lot of the stuff that they talk about is as if it were new, and these F-18 Navy pilot sightings and the radar sightings from the ships and so on, they talk about various observables, high speed, extreme acceleration, weird shape, no aerodynamic surfaces, stuff like that. All this was known back in 1947. uh, by the Air Force intelligence people. They were collecting data from witnesses